The programme, China's top legislative body has unanimously approved a national security law for the territory that may crush political freedoms. It's the most far-reaching development in Hong Kong's history ever since it was handed over to China in 1997. Acts of subversion could now face a maximum sentence of life in jail. Critics say it'll be used to stamp out all forms of dissent, and it comes after months of mass unrest sparked by fears of China's tightening grip on Hong Kong. The legislation aims to cement Beijing's control over the semi-autonomous territory and reshape the future of one of the world's major financial centres. Adrian Brown is standing by for us with reaction out of Hong Kong. But first, let's cross over to Beijing, where Katrina Yu is waiting for us. And Katrina, really, just talk us through the process of what we know about how this law and legislation has been discussed in Beijing.
We know that China's Standing Committee, its top legislative body, met at 9 a.m. Today on Tuesday to discuss this, and shortly after, to vote on this, and shortly after it was passed unanimously. Now, only one member of that Standing Committee is from Hong Kong, but they did have 12 observers from Hong Kong during the discussion of this law, which has taken place since Sunday. Now, we know it's a hefty law. It consists of 6 chapters with 66 different articles underneath that. And what is most concerning to some legal experts is that state media here have flagged the fact that Beijing will have jurisdiction over very few of those crimes, meaning that extradition to the mainland will be possible. Also, we know that life imprisonment could be one of the heaviest penalties for breaking any of these crimes mentioned in this law. We're still waiting on more details. We should have that later on today. But moving forward, we know there will be a national security office set up in Hong Kong, most likely to be headed by somebody in China's Ministry of Public Security, somebody involved in intelligence. And there are a few more steps before this law is actually implemented, but ultimately it will be inserted into Hong Kong's basic law, its mini constitution, completely bypassing Hong Kong's own legislative process. And we have to remember that this has been a tremendously fast-tracked process. It's been just about 40 days since this national security law was first announced during China's National People's Congress, its largest political gathering earlier this year. And usually these laws take years, at least a year, for this to be passed. And that really does demonstrate Beijing's determination to stamp out these pro-democracy protests, which many say are basically have been a threat to Beijing's power in Hong Kong. For its part, China's leaders say that that is not the case. This national security law is about protecting Hong Kong's stability, Hong Kong's prosperity. This is all about a fresh new start for Hong Kong. But regardless, we have to also look finally at the timing of this. Tomorrow is July the 1st, the anniversary of Hong Kong's handover from Britain back to China. And ultimately, Beijing seems to be sending a very strong message, and that is that in Hong Kong, it is Beijing that is in charge.
Katrina Yu in Beijing, thank you. Well, let's get reaction now from Hong Kong. Adrian Brown is our correspondent standing by for us. And since we heard the news just a few hours ago, Adrian, we've been wondering what the reaction would be from Hong Kong. We're now getting more voices speaking, pro-democracy leaders now speaking about their future intentions. What more do we know?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Even before local media announced that this law had been passed, it was already beginning to have a chilling effect. Now, Joshua Wong, a well-known young democracy activist, has said that he's going to be resigning from the political party he helped to set up. He believes he'll be a target of this new security law, and he says he's leaving the party in order to practice his own beliefs privately. Also, another member of the same party, Nathan Law, has also announced his resignation, and a smaller pro-democracy party called the Hong Kong National Front has also announced its disbanding. So you can see the effect already that the law is starting to have. And I think actually that will please China's leaders, because this law, more than anything else, I think, is there as a warning. Now, China has said in the past this law was coming. It had warned that certain red lines had been crossed. It had said there would be consequences. Now we're seeing those consequences in action. We've also been hearing from Carrie Lam, the embattled chief executive of Hong Kong, who, as Katrina mentioned, has been completely bypassed in this process, along with her legislative legislature, but she dodged questions about the new law at her Tuesday morning media conference. She said she won't comment until the law has actually been confirmed as having been passed, and we expect to have that confirmation later this afternoon, as well as confirmed details of exactly what this law contains. But according to state media during the past few weeks, this law will allow mainland agents to operate legally on the ground here in Hong Kong, where a new security body is also going to be established. So this, without doubt, Sohail, is the most profound impact, the most profound decision on Hong Kong since the handover from Britain to China almost 23 years ago.
Of course, it is a developing story. We'll check in with you later with that. Adrian Brown there in Hong Kong. Thank you. Well, while China's top legislature has kept the draft of the law under wraps, some details have emerged over the past few weeks, so let's take a look at those. The law criminalises acts of secession, subversion and terrorism and collusion with foreign forces. And as we have been saying, it'll also allow members of the Chinese security services to set up and operate an agency in Hong Kong. Beijing will get jurisdiction over some national security cases related to the city. Finally, it'll give Hong Kong's leader the power to choose judges that will preside over cases. Well, Tanya Chan is a legislator and convener of the pro-democracy camp in Hong Kong. She joins me now via Skype. Good to have you with us on the programme. It does seem that China has circumvented the legislature in Hong Kong. How significant is that in the way that China now deals with Hong Kong in the future?
Well, by passing this law, I would say this is like a death certificate of one country, two systems. Back in the 90s, the Chinese government had promised not only to Hong Kong people, but to the world that Hong Kong will implement one country, two systems. That means we can keep our own judiciary, the legislature, as well as the own administration. But now you can see that by passing this law within like 40 days without any consultation in Hong Kong, without disclosing the details of this legislation, is definitely bypassing the administration as well as the legislature in Hong Kong. And the details that you have mentioned, of course, is not confirmed yet, but you can see that not only the legislature and the administration is under pressure, you can see also our judicial independence is also under very great pressure, in a sense that it may affect the Hong Kong judiciary in the long run.
Do you think that you will have any useful part in Hong Kong's future in the weeks, months and years ahead, or are you now obsolete?
Well, it's really very much depends on whether we can, whether the Chinese government still respect the legislature, because in Hong Kong, we always have freedom of speech. We can always have freedom of expression. But under this legislation, which likely will be promulgated tomorrow, are all our freedom and rights are still protected under our basic law, or whether this law will come above all our Hong Kong local legislature as well as the basic law. So that means our future is very uncertain. Although some people said that this legislature would only affect a small number of people, but you can see that under the definition of national security in China, it covers a very, very wide range of aspects. For example, like economies, education, as well as religion. Yeah. So I really don't know what will happen in even tomorrow. So it very much depends on whether our administration will exercise self-restraint.
Ms. Chan, very briefly then, I want to ask you about your reaction to news that Joshua Wong and Nathan Law are stepping down from, you might say, the high-profile role they've played in the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. What's your reaction to that? And do you expect the international community to take, you might say, the mantle of criticism of the way Beijing have handled this to protect the likes of Joshua Wong and Nathan Law?
Well, by passing this law within such a short period of time, I do believe that the Chinese government has a very strong determination not only to send a warning, but probably will take action. That's, of course, I'm a bit pessimistic, but I of course respect the decision of Nathan as well as Joshua, but I understand that they are under great pressure. But at the same time, I think they would continue to fight for democracy in their own ways. But I do believe that the impact will be more. So we may see some more impact on not even the younger generations, but also some other political parties or organization in the near future.
OK, we shall see what happens. Tanya Chan joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.